doing one thing differently is often the same as doing everything differently. This is a quote from a really cool book I read last year titled The Midnight Library. I was really hesitant to read the book at first because I hadn't read fiction in a very long time, but it was recommended to me and I picked it up. It really changed my perspective because at the time I was feeling really lost. I was feeling a little bit confused about my career. I was pregnant and I had just moved to a new city where I didn't know anyone. My life at the time felt like such a jumbled mess and I did not know how to get out of it. Now that's not the only time I felt that, but having gone through that feeling multiple times in my life, I truly believe that it is those moments that make us who we are. The decisions that we make to change certain aspects of our life places us on trajectories that we couldn't possibly even comprehend had we not gone through those difficult moments. The theme of this video is change, and more accurately, it is transformation. And if you don't know me, that makes sense because this is my first YouTube video. First of all, thank you for watching it, but coincidentally, that also is very fitting for the theme of the video because YouTube is something that I've been wanting to do for a really long time and I knew that it had the potential to change my life, but the jump to creating long form content and the changes that I would have had to make in my life to make that happen just felt so overwhelming. And I believe that's the feeling we all get when we want to make a change. In this video, we're going to dissect the anatomy of transformation. We're going to talk about the feeling of being lost, where that really comes from and how you can leverage that emotion to actually create real change. Then we're going to talk about the changes, the real breakthroughs you can make to get to that point, how you can set them so they're actually sustainable and so they lead to real change that you can see over time. And finally, you cannot achieve those goals without systems. So we're going to talk about real tangible things that you can apply right now to bring these goals to life. And stick with me because as structural and procedural as it sounds right now, we're going to really place weight on the mental and emotional variables that come to play during the transformation process. This might take the shape of a little therapy session right here. Let's get started. So remember the book that I talked about earlier on in the video? The actual synopsis of the book is about a woman who gets the chance to experience all the different variations that her life could have taken. She basically gets to experience what it would have been like if she had made different decisions. Now, I'm willing to bet that every single person watching this has some regrets about things that they could have done in the past. And it's so easy to say that you should just get over that. Like, you can't go back in the past. You can't change the decisions that you made. All you can do is live with them. But that's so much easier said than done, especially when you can kind of mentally go back and pinpoint which choices led to what and how you would have changed those decisions if you could go back. You could almost see the different path that you wish to be living if you had chosen differently. Now, the really bad thing about this, aside from it just being like really mentally exhausting, is that it can lead to decision fatigue. So you stop being able to make decisions not only about the past, but in the present. You constantly get into a cycle where you feel stuck and like you're unable to move forward because you don't know what changes you can make, or even if you know what changes to make, you're unable to take the decisions that would allow you to actually make the change. In the book, after the main character gets to experience all those different versions of her life, she realizes that there is no life that is better than the other because every life has its own butterfly effect of events that she would have wanted to avoid had she experienced that life. And sometimes even if you did get to experience those alternatives, you might not end up choosing that life anyways. The best version might already be the life that you're living because you don't know what would have happened otherwise. Another reason we sometimes struggle to take those steps is because we really can't picture what our life would look like if we do make those changes. I remember in a lot of my darkest moments, a lot of the thoughts that I would always get would be, if I make this seemingly big change, I don't know what my life will look like. And like, what if it's worse than what it is right now? Kind of like a familiar hell is better than an unfamiliar heaven. I think one thing we underestimate, and I really wish I could tell myself this back in the day, is how adaptable the human brain and humans in general really are. Neuroplasticity is not something to be taken lightly. Your brain is constantly changing, rewiring itself to adapt to new circumstance. The more steps, no matter how small, you put in to change your external circumstances, the more your internal processes change to match the new environment that you're creating for yourself. You are capable of so much more power than you can even imagine. Just reframing your mindset is enough to get you on the first step of the path that will actually take you where you want to go. And I know people talk a lot about it in the sense of like you should manifest or like imagine or visualize or even journal about it, but I think the main point is being able to understand that change is truly possible for you and that you could live a better life. I remember 2 years ago when I was pregnant and I was really struggling in my career, I felt like my whole life was changing. I remember going to an event even though I was really tired and I really didn't want to go. And someone in the middle of a conversation asked me a question. What would you change in your life right now if fear wasn't a factor? And I remember in that moment knowing exactly what I would change, but I still struggled to admit it to myself enough to actually take that step because I knew once I admitted it, there was no going back. To me in that moment, admitting that I needed to make the change and actually making the change were basically one and the same. Like, it didn't actually matter if I did make the change. If I admitted it to myself, I might as well have. It was just way too much cognitive bias for my mind to handle at that point. Let's address the bias because I know it can turn into one of the biggest factors that gets us to resist change and transformation. The definition of cognitive bias is when there's a disconnect between what you believe and what you actually do. So you have to change one of them because it becomes too uncomfortable for your body and your mind. A lot of times people end up choosing to change their beliefs, not actually their behavior, because that's how difficult changing your behavior is. Behavior is so grounded, it is so foundationally rooted that a lot of people, instead of choosing to change their behavior, they end up changing their beliefs to keep the behavior the same. This is especially true when there's like habits involved, because habits are especially hard to change. How do you overcome these things that are so grounded within you? Things like bias and resistance to change. One of the biggest things that you can do to actually get yourself out of that loop is having a clear vision of where you want to go and believing that that place could be better than where you are right now. More than having a vision, you also have to believe that it's possible, because if you have an idea in your head of where you want to go but you don't believe it's possible, it's kind of moot. Like, there's no point, because you're never going to try to actually take the steps to get there. If you're struggling with that, remember that if you look around you, you will find some of the most undeserving people and some of the most unlikely places. Success doesn't necessarily favor the good. It favors those who take steps to reach it. The other side of that is you have to let go of any entitlement that makes you feel like you were deserving of something and you didn't attain it because the world is just unfair, because that'll just put you in a loop where you feel like you don't want to put in the effort to get the thing because you are deserving of it, so it should find you on its own. Success favors the bold, but also those humble enough to admit that they have to work for it. If you lead with ego, that's going to be a barrier for you to make those changes in the long term. So now let's set a vision. And the thing is, when a lot of people hear vision, the first thing they think about is vision board. And I believe a vision board is very powerful because it gives you the ability to visualize exactly where you want to get to. And I don't know about you, but I'm someone who's very motivated by results. I am someone who is super motivated to put in the effort once I know exactly what I'm trying to reach, so I can understand how strong of an image a vision board can provoke. The only issue with a vision board is that it's not sufficient on its own. Like, you can't build systems on a vision board. It's really nice just to like imagine where you want to get to, but you have to connect something to it. And what that's going to be is your goals. So sometimes people like to create the vision board and then set goals based on that. I like to work the opposite way around. We're going to start with yearly goals, and this is something I like to do at the beginning of every year, but I also think that you can do it at any point in the year. You can do it right now. Don't ever wait for like a specific time to start. If you really want to wait for a specific time, think of this as a head start. And the most important thing is you start now, otherwise it's going to become something that you're going to do eventually in the future, perpetually. Like, you're just going to keep pushing it off. Let's say you've set your goals for the next year. Try not to make them too unrealistic. If you don't have a job or have never started a business before, don't set your goal to be a millionaire. You're just going to set yourself up for disappointment. Instead, set your goals to be things that would set you on the path for where you eventually want to reach. So I like to have an overarching life goal that I work back from. Based on that, I set a theme for the year. Based on that, I set major goals for the year. So for example, instead of saying I want to be a millionaire, I say I want to like build a personal brand, or I want to do more speaking engagements, because I know those are steps that I could take to eventually get to that like major goal. For example, this is just an example. So now we've set goals. Do we stop there? Absolutely not. Goals on their own are not enough to actually change or transform your life. I like to divide my goals into 3 categories that fit the overall theme. Those are going to be 3 main things that I focus on this year. So it could be like relationships, peace of mind, and career. For example, we're going to break those goals into quarterly goals. From the quarterly goals, we're going to break it into weekly goals. Something I heard from another YouTuber, Ali Abdal. He was talking about the system that he uses to reach his goals, which is that he sets goals for the week, and then every week he does like a weekly review, looks at all the blockers that he faced the week before and how he can fix those and improve them so he can reach the goals of the next week. By the way, I have all of this in a Notion template that you can download for free in the description below. To me, I like to take it a step further because I don't believe that weekly goals are enough for you to actually change structural, deeply rooted habits and behaviors. For that, I believe you need systems. Okay, so I'm the type of person who I will waste all of the time that I have if I don't have a clear routine telling me exactly what I need to be doing at a given moment, because I feel like my mind just becomes a really jumbled mess if I don't have my priorities straight all the time. And this is something I really struggled with for so much in my life. There's a solution that I've been implementing that has honestly transformed my entire flow. It has been incredibly helpful in getting me to focus on specific things all the time. I don't know if this is like an ADHD thing. I'm not diagnosed with ADHD, but I feel like I have traits of just being unable to like focus on one thing and like my mind constantly going to other things all the time. To overcome that, I sat down with Claude. I basically gave it a list of all of my priorities at this point in my life. To me, they all felt so chaotic, because how do I balance being a new mom with running a business, with creating content, like home responsibilities, and like how do I make sure that I'm giving everything the time that it deserves? After a lot of back and forth, I landed on the perfect structure for my week that allows me to have a routine where I'm able to wake up early, go to the gym, do like my mom duties, and then work and be completely focused on that, because I'm able to not have everything be top of mind all the time. Basically, I'm able to actually separate what I'm doing, so it makes it so much easier to focus on the task that I'm actually working on. The best thing about it is that it's built on a foundation of flexibility, because that's the most important thing that I need in my life right now. I made sure to build it into the actual routine, but on top of that, I'm able to just go onto Claude and like tell it to make changes on the fly because, oh, I missed like this thing. Basically, I'll be like, reorganize my calendar to fit this new thing that just came up. I also know that there are other AI tools for that, but I also think some of them might be more expensive or more geared towards like teams or corporations. This was just a really nice solution for one person to organize their calendar, to be able to focus better and act. It maps real goals so that I'm able to actually achieve the desired level of change that I need in my life. If you want the exact prompts that I used as well, those are also going to be linked in the description completely for free. Feel free to download them and let me know what you think. Before we end this video, I want to leave you with another quote from the Midnight Library that also stuck with me. It goes, "When you stay too long in a place, you forget just how big an expanse the world is. You get no sense of the length of those longitudes and latitudes, just as it is hard to have a sense of the vastness inside any one person. But once you see that vastness, when something reveals it, hope emerges, whether you want it to or not, and it clings to you stubbornly, as lichen clings to rock." If you've made it this far, thank you so much for sticking around. I hope you found value in this video. See you in the next one.